Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving right into the Disney downfall, the dark truth about the Magic Kingdom. How exactly did a seemingly invincible entertainment empire, literally the gold standard of imagination and profit, suddenly get so vulnerable? Well, we're going to look at the anatomy of a kingdom in crisis, just to really understand the structural fractures hidden right behind those castle walls. Okay, let's start with this quote. The happiest place on earth is currently a battlefield. Just think about the sheer contrast there for a second. For decades, Disney's carefully curated facade was all about, joy, escapism, and universal harmony. But behind the scenes, that facade has given way to active combat. This isn't just some minor rough patch. No, it's a massive corporate entity fighting on multiple fronts just to stay afloat. And as we break this down, you'll see pretty quickly that this isn't just one bad year or a single unlucky decision. It's a trifold problem. Crippling financial debt, an ideological cultural war, and a critical leadership vacuum. The absolute key takeaway here is how these three completely different types of challenges just collided. They collided at the exact same time to create a perfect storm for the company. So, you might be wondering, how did Disney's greatest asset seemingly transform into a massive liability? Well, that brings us to Pillar 1, the IP Golden Cage. Now, intellectual property, we're talking about the most recognizable characters, stories, and universes on the planet, has always been Disney's bottomless vault of value. It was their ultimate superpower, right? But recently, that vault has morphed into a golden cage. Yes, it's incredibly valuable and shiny, but by over-leveraging the brand to squeeze out every possible drop of profit, the company essentially locked itself into this rigid, highly pressurized financial structure. Now they have to constantly feed the beast just to maintain their footing. And this exact pressure cooker created what's known as streaming war fatigue. It's a massive two-front problem for them. First off, there is a very real limit to how much content audiences can actually consume, not to mention how many subscriptions we can all tolerate. And second, to even compete in this arena, Disney had to pour astronomical amounts of capital into churning out endless shows and movies. Basically, they stretched their iconic brand incredibly thin in the process. This is literally what happens when limitless corporate ambition slams right into the very real limits of consumer attention. But the financial strain of streaming is really only part of the story here. Let's move on to Pillar 2, the cultural battlefield. Beyond the balance sheet, Disney has found itself thrust into a cultural crossfire. And this isn't just background noise on social media. It's a profound structural business challenge. Think about it. Disney's historical model relies almost entirely on universal appeal. The goal was always making every family everywhere feel perfectly at home in their ecosystem. But when a brand gets caught up in ideological friction, maintaining that universal, frictionless appeal becomes incredibly difficult. It forces a massive strain on the core identity of the company and risks alienating the broad audience they absolutely require to justify their massive scale. So, brand fatigue and cultural battles are heavy burdens for sure, but they can actually become fatal without a steady hand at the wheel. And that brings us to Pillar 3, Iger and the sinking ship. Let's trace the direct cause and effect of this downfall. It really begins with the Chapek era, which was defined by critical strategic errors, things like highly controversial park price hikes and alienating some of their top creative talent. And these missteps didn't just dip profits, they created a massive leadership vacuum. During this void, mounting debt from those streaming wars and the cultural battlefield intensified, completely unchecked. This chronological buildup leads directly to today, the desperate return of Bob Iger. And to be clear, this isn't functioning as some triumphant victory lap. It's basically an emergency rescue mission for a vessel taking on water fast. So, all the pieces are on the board. The legendary IP vault is now a heavily leveraged golden cage, the brand's universal appeal is totally strained by cultural warfare, and the leadership is in full-blown crisis management mode. With this desperate rescue mission underway, it really leaves us with one monumental question. Can Bob Iger actually save a sinking ship? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and definitely keep this framework in mind as you watch the future of the Magic Kingdom unfold.